Minister Nzimande, the leadership of PPF, and members of the Progressive Professionals, led by the President of PPF, Mr. Jimmy Manyi, and the Secretary General of PPF, Mr. Spile Buthelezi, the leadership of the Pan-Africanist Parliament, who honored us by availing this venue to us, distinguished panelists, academic community, members of the media, and all of us who honored this day by making yourself available. Good morning and welcome to our function. It is indeed an honor and a privilege to preside over this gathering celebrating the first anniversary of PPF, an idea long overdue. Msholos, it is my observation and my honest belief, Mr. President, that the organization that we launched last year is still vibrant, is kept intact, as you would witness with the presentation that will follow later. Our members, as you indicated, are beginning to emulate the good examples of the greatest professionals like Anton Lembede, Nkosi Albert Lutuli, Oliver Reginald Tambo, Johnny Makhathini, Robert Sobukwe, and many others who were before us. We all who utilize their intellectual position to advance the broader interests of society. And it is my observation that PBF members are in that line. But Mr. President, allow me an opportunity to call upon our President, to call upon the Deputy President of PPF, Mr. Kashif Whitecop, who will introduce PPF. Is it? Yeah.
Good morning, goeiemôre, morweni, sawubona, assalamu alaikum, haitara. The President of the Republic of South Africa, Minister Bladen Zimandi, I should just say at this stage, all protocols observed, but particularly the leadership of the PPF throughout the country, PPF Gauteng, our chairperson Poko, PPF KZN, our chairperson Zweli, PPF Western Cape, our chairperson Wahida, the leadership of Eastern Cape, Western Cape, Northern Cape, Mpumalanga, and Limpopo. We welcome you here to this occasion today. For those of you who don't understand and know the PPF, and we won't hold this against you, I'll just reiterate. The PPF is a non-racial, non-sexist, non-xenophobic, and non-Afrophobic organization of progressive professionals, and particular on the issue of being non-Afrophobic. We find it quite peculiar and bizarre that professionals from Europe are welcome in our country, but when professionals from Africa come into South Africa, many of our citizens have many things to say, and therefore then we took a stand in that regard. The PPF comprises professionals, academia, intelligentsia, entrepreneurs who align themselves with the progressive movements of our country, and Mr. President, who aligns themselves with the Freedom Charter and with the Republic of South Africa. As the PPF, we are openly supportive of the African National Congress. We believe that the ANC's policies and its developmental focus is the most progressive in this country. In fact, we have to see other parties come up with their own, other than criticizing the policies and principles of the African National Congress. We do so, and we support the African National Congress of our own accord. And in fact, I think probably our contribution towards democracy in this country was best felt with the national elections that happened on the 7th of May, where members of the PPF at all levels throughout the country contributed towards having a free and fair election, and contributed, Mr. President and the Minister, towards a 63% victory that we felt. And I think for that we all deserve a hand. The PPF believes that the intellectual power base of South Africa is grossly underutilized. We acknowledge that the middle class is not contributing as much as it is capable of, and as often as it should, towards building our country. We believe that diversity of opinions are more effective in an inclusive framework. We believe other professional bodies are more developmental in nature and inward focused, and are therefore restricted with regards to the role that they can play in society at large. At the PPF, we believe, therefore, that mentorship is the key of what is going to contribute towards building this economy and building this country. And that is mentorship at various levels. Mentorship from senior executives to middle managers. Mentorship from senior executives assisting the state in achieving its objectives. Mentorship from students in mentoring high school students. And that culture of mentorship must be entrenched, enshrined, and promoted within our country. The PPF, therefore, has called together professionals to come into this organization, roll up their sleeves, and contribute towards building this country of our dreams. When we launched in August 2013 by yourself, Mr. President, we set forth a target on what we're going to do. We believe that we have, since August, achieved quite a few of our objectives. We've researched and published opinion pieces regularly. We have worked actively, as I've said, on the election campaign. We believe that we are delivering on our mandate. However, having said that, we know that the mammoth task faces us in order to build the country of our dreams. We must be vigilant and critical of our government. However, we must remain patriotic. We must celebrate our country's successes. We must celebrate the fact that 5.5 million homes have been built and delivered at no cost to the poorest of the poor in this country. The biggest rollout of housing globally. We must celebrate that today 16 million people are receiving grants from the state, which was compared to, I think it was 5 million in 1994. We must celebrate that we have free basic education. We must celebrate something as simple as running water is now available to more homes than there was before in 1994. We must become the biggest billboard of South Africa and not its worst critics. We must, as professionals and business persons, lend our skills, our expertise, and our resources towards building this country we call home. Because so we are South Africans first, before we are Xhosa, before we are Indian, before we are colored, before we are Jewish. We must therefore always and forever be patriotic South Africans. This then, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President and Minister, is the clarion call of the PPF, and that we're asking professionals to come forward and contribute towards building the country of our dreams. In closing, I want to quote Irma Bombek, who said, "When I stand before God at the end of my life, I would hope that I would not have a single bit of talent left and could say, I used everything that you gave me and imparted all my talent to others." I thank you.
Thank you, DP. The colleagues, allow me, Mr. President, to acknowledge the presence of our panelist, Ms. Feroza Patel from UNISA, Prof. Sipho Siepe from the Graduate Institute of Management Technology, the moderators, Jabulile Buthelezi, Dr. Wahida Amin, Dr. Ezekiel Moroka, as panelists, and Mr. Silo Gardner from the University of Zululand. And also to acknowledge the presence of a Guerrillian Business Initiative and the captains of industry, who all of them decided to leave what they were doing and decided to honor us and be with us today. We appreciate your presence, but we, having indicated that we need to contextualize the celebration that we have, and I'm going to ask the president of PBF, Comrade Jimmy Manyi, to come forward and give us the context under which we are having this meeting.
Thank you, Program Director. His Excellency, the President of the Republic, Baba President Jacob Zuma, the Honorable Minister of the Department of Higher Education and Training, Dr. Nkandla, the various Vice Chancellors and representatives from the various institutions that will be giving us our content of today, leadership of the PPF at all levels. We've got people here at national, provincial, and regional level. Our sponsors, thank you very much for assisting us to make sure that this event is a success. And the PPF student chapters that are here, their representatives, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends, a very good morning to all of you. Mr. President, PPF is a very versatile organization. When we want numbers, we call meetings at night. When we want quality, we call meetings during the day. People that are here, Mr. President, have made a very serious sacrifice. Some of them have taken days leave. Some of them have stopped their businesses because of the value of the topic that we're discussing today. So the people that are here, Mr. President, to a person, are very important. So we're very, very grateful to all of you that you really made it today. Our theme, Mr. President, today is not only going to focus on the intricacies of the transformation in the higher institutions of learning, and we focus on these as PPF largely because we're a professional organization and these institutions generate professionals. So therefore it is our interest that we check what is happening in these institutions because much more importantly is the impact of the products of these institutions into the society at large and the economy of this country. So this conference, the President, is actually a building block, and it's one of those fine-tuning cogs of the NDP. We believe that the NDP is the correct vision, but we also believe that it can be a static document. It must be work in progress. It must be fine-tuned. So this conference must be seen as one of those elements to fine-tune the NDP. Mr. President, we're inspired by your State of the Nation address when you spoke about the issue of radical transformation. And we think that that radical transformation you spoke about must be the underlying theme for everything that we do in this country. One of our stalwarts here in the national executive member of the PPF, Babu Nkandla. Today we refer to him as Dr. Don Nkandla because last night on the occasion of the graduation ceremony at the Durban University of Technology, he was honored with a doctorate in management service. I think we should give him a round of applause. This is why I could not be here with us, Mr. President. He has become a very important man now. He's a doctor. So he said I must pass on his apologies. He has delivered a very inspirational paper on this topic that we're talking about today. And we have asked the marketing department of the PPF to make sure that that paper is on the websites and everywhere. It has provided a lot of inspiration for some of us here to be able to make some of these inputs that we're making. But Mr. President, because for us as PPF, this event is to provide PPF a learning environment. We want to hear from the real players what is happening in this space. But before we do that, Mr. President, we think that the economy of this country is central to everything. And if the economy of this country is not equitably shared, we have a problem. We would argue, Mr. President, what in fact I should have done, I must apologize for this, is to also recognize the leadership of the BBC that is also here today. That, PPF is also an affiliate of the BBC. So for us as PPF, Mr. President, and the BBC, our message is very clear that one of the biggest challenges, one of the impediments of equitable transformation, equitable economic transformation, the biggest impediment is PPFA. We would want to urge the President that let the legacy of the President be defined by the eradication of this policy. You should be clapping hands. Mr. President, there's a R1 trillion infrastructure expenditure that government keeps talking about. But with the 90-10 rule of the PPFA, what that means, Mr. President, is that the price, 90% of the points are going to be awarded on price. 20 years of democracy at the back of 300 years of oppression is nothing. 20 years has not begun to make a dent. It is making a dent, but not quite a serious dent in reversing the oppression that we suffered over 300 years. To expect black people, Mr. President, that only 20 years later, that they should operate on par with people that have been running this economy for centuries is just not fair. And this is what PPFA seeks to do. And we are saying, as long as that PPFA is intact, the economic revolution that we talk about will just be a mirage. And we want to call, Mr. President, particularly for the state-owned enterprises, that they should be exempted from this PPFA. We welcome the fact that National Treasury is working on reviewing this policy. We really welcome that. But we think that they could speed up things a bit more, and starting with exempting the state-owned enterprises. Right now, Mr. President, if you look at the procurement spend of ESCOM as an example, since they had at one point been given some temporal exemption, and as a result of that, they were able to make some headway. But once that period came and went, and now the spend has begun to go the wrong way again, in terms of ensuring that we have more black industrialists, which is the vision of the President. So, Mr. President, for your vision of black industrialists to be attained, PPFA must go. The topic of today, Mr. President, is about the transformation in the institutions of higher learning. The government has done a lot of good things, but sometimes it's almost like the media is the enemy of the state. Why is it, Mr. President, in fact, I should be addressing this to the chancellors that are here. Why is it that we're producing the kinds of journalists and editors that we have today? That for stories to sell, you've got to be denigrating government. For stories to sell, you've got to pick up everything negative, and you are not able to see anything positive that this government has done. Why do we have the kind of editorial slant that we have? Mr. President, just a couple of days ago, I observed a very fundamental judgment that has just been awarded by by the highest court in the land, the Constitutional Court, on the issue of the numeric targets on the Employment Equity Act. This has been a vexing issue. People have been cross-questioned. In fact, I've also, Patricia DeLille has been saying to me, Jimmy, these numerical targets are not in the Constitution, so you can't enforce them. It's unconstitutional. I was so happy when this ruling was made, that the issue of the numerical goals that are contained in the Employment Equity Act are actually constitutional. And then I looked at the headlines yesterday that reported on this matter. The only newspaper that had this story on cover page was the New Age. It's the only newspaper, the New Age. Business Day covered it on page 3. Sowetan, somewhere in the middle, a thin little column on the Sowetan, even in the Star, somewhere buried in there. The same case was the same case which this Constitutional Court reported on, or ruled on, or judged on. The same case, when it was in the lower courts, when Solidarity won the first initial rounds of this case, it was headlines that there was a SAPS case of that Barnard lady, and all this was not appointed because there was a plan that said we want so many black people in there. Is that whole story. I want to go into the details of it today. When Solidarity won one of the first rounds in the lower courts, headlines, major earth-shattering judgment by the courts, and so on. But today, the highest court on the land has pronounced against Solidarity. The newspapers have decided to smother the thing and keep it low, keep it on obscure pages. Why is it that we have this kind of journalism in this country? We have a lot of achievement that the government has made. In the Northern Cape, we've got the Dr. Hirisete Hospital, 300-bed, high-tech hospital that has been built there. It's just a flash in the pan. We're not talking about this thing. Why is it? Is it because when you talk about it, you'll be giving accolades to this government? There's another project, Mom Connect, where the pregnant mothers can SMS their registration details. There's a lot of interaction that pregnant mothers or women can have with hospitals. This SMS service also allows for free reporting of corrupt activity and all this. None of this is being reported. People are saying this delivery is slow. Government has started with Operation Phakisa. But we never hear about Operation Phakisa, which is a fast-tracking, delivering mechanism to make sure that as problems arise, you have almost an SOS kind of an approach to sort it out as it comes, cutting out of the red tape. Operation Phakisa. Why is the media not reporting about this? This is because it will be selling good news about this government. A major project, a major decision taken by cabinet, the Grand Inga project, the treaty which has been signed between South Africa and the DRC, which is going to see the delivery of 40,000 megawatts of hydropower, clean energy, that is going to come out of this whole treaty. Cabinet has approved this thing to go to Parliament. Why is it that we're not celebrating these things? Why do we have a kind of media that does not see the goodness that this government is delivering? This is why, Mr. President, for us as a PPF, we are unapologetic pro this government and pro the African National Congress, because we think, like Kashif has said, without the kind of government that we have, these things that we're talking about actually are not going to be possible. Why is it that the universities continue to tell us about internationalization all the time? Yes, it's important, but who's going to focus on the local issues? Why is it, universities, that we have a situation where you continue to produce engineers, and yet in the Western Cape, we're sitting with a bucket system, and all we hear is that, no, the area is sandy, it's difficult. Why is it difficult for engineers to design a system that takes into account the fact that the area is sandy? Why don't we have an engineering design that's going to talk to that? What kind of engineers are we producing? The UCT has started. They've come up with an admission policy now that seeks to create, if you like, that seeks to further divide black people. You know, black people, when we were oppressed, all of us as a race. Now they've come with some clever policy to say, no, you know, there are some within these blacks that are not that badly affected than the others. So let's create an admission policy that, if you like, is almost like some black kids are now going to go into, call it an honorary white category, if you like. Because the admission policy, Mr. President, says, you know, if your parents are graduates, by definition, it means you are not really that bad off. You know, you're not that bad. At least your parents are graduates. What they are missing is the power of the social networks. The power of the social networks. You may be a graduate parent, but the social networks that the white counterparts have is unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. Mr. President, I make this example all the time of, you know, I'm 50 years old. When I compare myself to, let's say, a CEO of some other organization, I like Standard Bank example to see, because Jacob Zuma has retired. Picture Jacob Zuma doing his 50th birthday as a CEO of Standard Bank. Who would come into that function? All the executives of Standard Bank will be there as a starting point. All the heads of the related insurance companies will be there. All the top clients of Standard Bank are going to be there. Now picture, Mr. President, if Jacob was doing this thing in his house, who would be in his house? Imagine his children, who they'll be mingling with. Now, if any of his children either wanted a job or wanted scholarship or wanted to start a business, what problem do they have? Zero. Zero. Now picture me having a 50th birthday. Who's going to be there? You know? Power of social networks. Can't be, and this University of Cape Town story tries to downplay this. And also, you know, Mr. President, even those parents that manage to take their kids to the private schools, by the way, they scrape the bottom of the barrel to make that happen. And they're still not providing all the support that is required. The kids in the private schools from wealthy white families, they've got a lot of support. Their mothers are housewives. They can help them to go to sporting area. In black families, everybody's working. You know, nobody's there to support these children. Some of them, because you scrape the bottom of the barrel to get your kid there, when there's a trip in these private schools, they go to America. Your kid can't go there because you could only afford the school fees. But on paper, your child was at Crawford, and therefore it must be assumed that he got everything or she got everything. It's a problem. It's just not true. So we're calling upon the minister, Mr. President, to intervene in these cases. The universities are very quick. They're very quick to talk about autonomy. Yeah, we can talk about autonomy, but we must understand that we've got an agenda of this country. So whatever autonomy universities have can't be outside the national agenda of this country. So we're calling upon the minister to make sure that those councils that are there have got a proper mandate to make sure that these things happen. So we argue that UCT admission policy of Cape Town is actually reversing the gains of social cohesion. Innovation. What innovation is coming from our institutions? Why is it? I'm trying to understand what is the new latest thing that we've done in this country as a result of innovation coming from our universities. Maybe it's there, but maybe it's not reported. I don't know. Why is it? Why are we not the center of innovation in this country with all the universities that we have? Where's the focus of our institutions? Mr. President, one of the role of the professionals is to advise government, in our view, as PPF. And one of the things that we've been thinking about, and we're asking why is it that, I'm going towards conclusion now. This is all part of the welcome. I'm setting the tone for this. This is what the professors are going to deal with here. One of the issues, Mr. President, that worries us is the issue of rural development. That the architects of apartheid were very meticulous in choosing black areas in doing what they were doing. We've got areas that it doesn't matter what you do. If you ask me, they are beyond development. That's why black people were put there. Now we've got this government that must behave like a Hercules and must try and do everything in areas that even scientifically it's impossible to rehabilitate. We've got people sitting in the tops of mountains and somehow then we are told, no, government must deliver water up there. You know, this government is being asked to do impossible things. We as PPF, Mr. President, are calling for a rethink on the rural development. We know that our people are very sentimental about the graves. Dr. Nzimande said to me, abantu abadala masebe phazanyiso. So between that and the reality of bringing people to arable land, I think we must find a compromise somewhere. The cost of making sure that those arid areas are habitable is just, if you ask me, impossible. It's probably easier to sit with the chiefs and then slaughter and have a big imbizo and agree that let's have a process to move the graves to an area that have you driven around and seen the cattle of the white farmers as you drive past? You can see them. They are together, you know? Have you been to see our cattle in the rural areas? Really now? You're not sure whether it's a cattle or it's a donkey. It's because of the grazing land that they have. Now, why is it that it's difficult for us to convince our people that they are glorifying poverty? Why are we allowing our people to glorify poverty? So we need to find a way. These things is balance. We need to find a way of balancing those sentiments and bringing to reality. If we want a better life for everyone, very quickly, we need to be a bit more nuanced in our approach. This approach that we're taking right now, I argue, is impossible. We're going to have another 100 years. You know, my grandmother, Mr. President, from my maternal side is in Stekspruit. But Stekspruit was like the town part. The village is up the mountain, Nkandla, somewhere up the mountain. So we go into Stekspruit. I'm driving at the same elevation as I've been driving, no problem, into the town area. But now I must then go to the house. Then the elevation changes. The angle changes. Then it's like 70 degrees up the mountain. Huh? Now, fortunately, in that area, there's like a fountain. That's where they get their water. Now, with all this democracy and the government must deliver, must do everything for everyone, how are we going to get huge pipes of water up there and pump water? You know, to get the water up there, the cost of investing in the pumping station to get the water up there, and those people that are there, by the way, are not in a position to even pay. You know? And then must get water up there, you must get electricity up there. For a few people, it's just not cost effective. It's probably better to sit those people down and say, instead of being there, come here to Stekspruit itself. You know, let's make a plan here where things are reachable. So this is what I was saying. As I conclude, I want to say to the universities out here and the various universities of technologies and so on, sometimes when they talk about their transformation, they talk about, and they track transformation, they talk about the number of black students and so on. That's almost a measure of transformation. So I want to say to you today that the demographic profiling is not in itself transformation. It's just a starting point. We are not, the fact that you have now reached, call it the demographic profiling of the country, does not mean you are transformed. It means now we have the building blocks to now begin transformation. What is transformation? Transformation must be understood to be a fundamental change in how we do things. It must be a fundamental change in how we're operating. If, for instance, you ask me, University of Venda is probably 100% black. Is it transformed? If University of Venda is still seeing Wits University as an inspiration, then University of Venda is not transformed. Because Wits is not transformed. This, by the way, it's a pity that you couldn't make it. I apologize at the last minute. Professor Habib, he was there to, I had a discussion with him a couple of weeks ago, and he made a public statement on record that Wits was playing a lip service to transformation. This is Professor Habib himself saying this. So therefore, it's important that we see beyond the demographic profiling. It's a very important and necessary ingredient, but it must not be confused with a proxy for transformation. No. You can have all the demographics you want, and you can have a very reactionary culture, can have a very reactionary attitude and everything in that institution. So we're saying, yes, do get that demographic. There are not more than 5 women vice-chancellors. We lament the fact that the institutions of higher learning are a microcosm of an untransformed corporate South Africa. Why do we have a thing like this? We lament that. We lament the fact that it looks like in universities, the only place where black professors should be, or black lecturers, is only at a junior lecturer level. We lament that. Why is it that we have these glass ceilings at these institutions? I mean, usually in the corporate sector, they say, but they are not qualified. But those people that are there, they've got PhDs, but they're junior lecturers. Why is it that they are not breaking the glass ceiling? Why is it that even with professorships, there's a problem, that you don't get black professors, that in order for you to be made a professor, it looks like, again, the power of networks. White people, when they go into institutions, very quickly, whatever they do adds up, they get recognized. But for some reason, these black academics, they burn midnight oil, no recognition. They don't make it to professorship. Why is it that we have these kinds of things? So, Mr. President, I think that should be enough to set the tone. This is what we're here to talk about today, and we hope that our esteemed panel will go into much more detail and make sure that when we leave this place, we have a proper fine-tuning of the NDP, we have a proper vision for these institutions so that we produce the kinds of professionals that understand that South Africa is a developmental state, and therefore our approach and our attitude cannot be informed by the European dictates. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Jimmy. At least you have given us the context. But before we attract some negative publicity, let me put 2 things into their proper context. I've already had one of my colleagues sending me an SMS asking, when did Don Connors write his PhD thesis? Sorry, it's an honorary doctorate. So our journalist friend should not start asking for his PhD thesis. It's not going to be there. The second one is Prof. Sipho Siepe. We said he's from Graduate Institute of Management of Technology, and let's correct that. He is an advisor to the Minister of Human Settlement and a higher education specialist. Before I call upon the Honorable Minister of Higher Education to come and introduce the President, I must also indicate that, Mr. President, those who are here are those who are not only concerned about themselves, and they are concerned about the broader issues. Hence, they decided to leave their practice, they decided to leave their positions and came here. And they are mindful of those who are only concerned about themselves, and will share something that I picked up, that in a situation, an accountant who is a CFO opened his BMW and another car speeds by and hit the door, ripping it off completely. When the police arrive, the CFO, complaining bitterly, "Officer, look what they've done to my car," he whines. "You accountants, you are so materialistic. You make me sick," replies the officer. "You are so worried about your stupid car. You haven't even noticed your left arm was ripped off. Oh my God, what about my Rolex?" Let's call upon the Minister of Higher Education to introduce the President for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director. I guess this time my job is easy because I've come to introduce a person who needs no introduction. So it's not a difficult task at all to introduce our President, who is the fourth President of the Republic of South Africa, Democratic South Africa, and the 12th President of the ANC. A very stable organization, over 100 years, but only 12 presidents. Yes. Isn't that a sign of stability? For more than a century. Our president, of course, also is a graduate of that People's University where he spent a decade, Robben Island. It's not as yet officially recognized that it was a university at that time. Maybe what I just want to say, as I about to call the president, is that you must be congratulated for this initiative. But to then put a challenge, as I call the president, to say that we need to hear your voice more. You know, we live in a strange society. President Zuma's achievements are enormous in terms of what has been done during his presidency. No government ever has spent R1 trillion within one term on infrastructure. Interestingly, also in the area of education, under President Zuma, we now have 3 more new universities, which are the first in a democratic South Africa. That's just amongst the things, let alone the increase in life expectancy because of his decisiveness in tackling the HIV/AIDS pandemic. Yet, at the same time, he is subjected to such attacks by the media, maybe precisely for these reasons. And I'm very happy that you are here because we really would like to hear your voices more, because there is a very big offensive against our government, and with the president as a special target. And by sections of the media who have told themselves that they want regime change in this country, and the president is the main target. Interestingly, by the way, some of these media, they don't say thank you very much when we come and give them adverts. Yet they hate this government, but they never say thank you. In fact, many of them thrive on this money from this government that they consider to be dirty. So it is incumbent upon us that we defend our own gains. And I see this organization as being very important, so that we don't paint a gloomy picture. We have challenges, but South Africa is not doom and gloom, as they actually say, under the leadership of President Zuma. Mongameli, I have the pleasure to call upon you to address this gathering. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Director of the Program, Minister of Higher Education, Minister Blade Nzimande, Doctor, kodwa ungaphathi maphilisi. President of the Progressive Professionals Forum, Mr. Jimmy Manyi, and the leadership of the forum, Vice Chancellors, and other representatives from various tertiary institutions, members of the PPF and guests present, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Earlier I thought that I would say something about the fact that we have finished, or we are celebrating 20 years of freedom. I feel very important that we should always remind ourselves, because at times it is easy to forget in 20 years where you come from. How did you come? I was going to spend a bit of time on it, but unfortunately, the time is against us. We have decided to prolong the celebration to South Africans, to bring it to the sectors. We have already done so with the religious sector, and I think the ones who will be following will be the artists, and I'm sure at some point we'll meet the professionals, I would imagine. Because we thought it is important to celebrate and talk about South Africa. What has happened to South Africa since 1994, and how 1994 happened, and what is happening. Partly because the vibrancy in our democracy tended to lean on one side, where we are so critical of ourselves. Almost hear one or two voices saying it was better before 1994. only somebody who either did not live before or has forgotten what had happened. We had a system here called apartheid, institutionalized racism that never existed in any country in the world. Very brutal, to a point that it was declared by the United Nations as a crime against humanity. We fought it and finally succeeded to bring democracy. We have not looked at how our democracy was born after a very tough struggle. Why many people thought that South Africa would never resolve its problems, because it was so deep, it was so internationalized, that when it happened, they said it was a miracle. And what has happened since then? And therefore we have something to celebrate. We need to remind ourselves that times have moved, situations have changed. We have not done everything we're supposed to do. Certainly you couldn't within 20 years. I was talking to our diplomats last Sunday, and I was saying to them, I was empowering them, that when you are asked why there's so much protests in South Africa, you must be able to answer appropriately. Don't shy away and say our country is a bad one. Because if you don't understand why, you then don't understand South Africa. Why there are no protests in other countries that fought for their liberation? Being part of those who were with them, I can say I haven't seen programs in many countries to so religiously address the issues and talk about the issues of the poor as we do. In other places, there are no programs to build roads as we put them, to develop countries, nor give poor people who can't afford houses. We're the only one who are doing it. We actually tell people there's a program to do X, Y, Z, and people protest against what we have promised them. There's no country that has promised anything, because they were not like us. And that's saying you must tell them if they say why they are protesting in our countries, because in our country there are programs to change the quality of lives. In other countries there is no program. And people, they can't even protest for that matter. We have problems that are the problems of our very good policies and successes. They definitely bring problems, because if they see development nearby, why not here? And that's why they become too many. It's not because nothing is happening, it's because something is happening. I was merely saying we ought to contextualize what is happening in this country. Equally, our democracy is constitutional, very open, very protective, and therefore people have a right to say anything they want. And that's why there is too much vibrance and discussions. I mean, anything here is taken to, because we have a constitutional democracy, to a debate, if not a debate, to court, to parliament, because we are a free society. We must celebrate our freedom. Our media, so active. They couldn't say this before 20 years. They couldn't say a word about not let alone a minister, just an official. They wouldn't say there was no government or municipality in the country, because they would have ended in prison. In fact, I was talking to them. We'll also have their celebration to call them, the media, and celebrate with them the free expression and free saying about anything, anytime. So we say we must celebrate because we must remind ourselves where we come from, so that we see the difference, so that the kind of professionals as you are can talk to the issues rather than around the issues, and help, therefore, South Africa to move forward. That's why we are emphasizing, we are prolonging the celebration, because we think we need to engage one another to be realistic about our country, because we've done very well. I was relating a story how we negotiated and how unique we are as South African people, and how special we are. We are the only country, by the way, that has so many Nobel Peace Prize winners. So many. That tells you how special we are. First one was Lutuli. Of course, he came from the oldest organization. That organization is very proud. It has produced 2 already. It's not common. Bishop Tutu, our bishop. No other bishops in the world. Very difficult. Very special. But the one that takes the cup was when Mandela had declared 2 people who were fighting, getting the Nobel Peace Prize at the same time. Let alone that one got it because of the other. Very unique. Very unique country. These are things good for us that we ought to be so happy that we are a special country. We need to celebrate and say, good to be here in the southern tip of the continent. Well, as I said, I'm not taking more time. I would have taken more of your time on this one, because I believe we need to be reminded that we are a free country. And very free. Nobody's going to take it away. We'll fight like we've never seen before to stop whoever tries to take it away. Colleagues, just over a year ago, we gathered to launch a path-breaking forum whose aim is to bring together like-minded professionals to encourage, foster, and nurture progressive thinking in our country. This was and remains a welcome initiative because of the ethos that underpins progressive thinking. At the launch of this initiative, I made a point about the need to harness all efforts aimed at building a prosperous South Africa. We congratulate you on work done already to build the organization, your organization. It shows a lot of skill, commitment, and dedication to have come to this point of celebrating the first year of this progressive formation. We are encouraged that as professionals and intellectuals in our country, you have decided to travel a path of wanting to contribute to build our beautiful country. Very important. You have not chosen to stand in your corners comfortably and criticize anything that other people are doing. You decided to be part of the process, to participate in developing the country. Professionals and the intelligentsia are the critical reservoir of knowledge in any society. You are also a good barometer of the process and progress we are making in the advancement of our country. It is for this reason that in 2009, we set very high targets for our country. At tertiary level, we committed ourselves to producing professionals in various fields. For an example, we undertook to produce by 2014 more than 50,000 engineers, more than 50,000 animal and human health graduates, and more than 40,000 teacher graduates. Teacher graduates output in 2009 was 6,702. We're fully aware that our target of producing more than 40,000 teachers by this year, 2014, which we set in 2011, is not sufficient to meet the future demand for teachers, particularly at foundation phase. More so, since we have now introduced more years at the foundation phase, children will not have to do a compulsory grade R. I'm emphasizing the development of teachers because that is the foundation of our education system. Without good teachers, our targets of boosting the level of education and skills development in the country will fall flat. I'm therefore mobilizing you as professionals to partner with us in promoting teacher development and empowerment, as well as in supporting schools in every part of the country. Support knowledge development in the country generally for economic and social development. In 2011, we committed ourselves to increasing the numbers of honors graduates to more than 75,000, master's graduates to more than 17,000 and doctoral graduates to more than 5,000 by 2014. Our Department of Higher Education and Training is determined to continue working hard to meet these targets up to 2019 in the new term. However, in the longer term, the production of these skills is threatened by an aging lecturing workforce at higher education institutions. 1/5 of academics will retire within a decade, and many of these, at least 32%, are professors. This means that most experienced academics will be leaving higher education. We are concerned that limited numbers of younger researchers are entering the field. The numbers are not enough at the entry right now. We must therefore produce more researchers and produce more younger lecturers during this term. Our focus will also be on growing the number of graduates from Black communities and attracting them into academic careers. We need to make academia exciting for our youth. We know that we are competing with more exciting careers for our youth, such as information and communications technologies, broadcasting, or business. We will need your support to promote academia, to ensure that this country produces more progressive intellectuals, to move the country forward to prosperity. In this regard, we welcome the establishment of 2 brand new universities, namely Sol T. Plaatje University in the Northern Cape and the University of Mpumalanga, with a campus opened in Nelspruit. Ladies and gentlemen, our government is now paying particular focus on the technical and vocational education training colleges to promote them as centers of critical skills that our economy so desperately needs. The Department of Higher Education and Training launched the Decade of the Artisan campaign early this year. We want to have produced 30,000 artisans by the year 2030 for our country, for our economy. We appeal to you as professionals holding powerful positions in many institutions to support us by opening up your companies and institutions to learnerships for these young people, or to assist us in campaigns to promote learnerships and internships. We urge you to familiarize yourselves with the Youth Employment Accord and contribute to its implementation by promoting youth development and youth empowerment and employment in our country. Together, we will move South Africa forward. Compatriots, the last time we met, I said our country had achieved a lot in a few years of freedom. Let me reiterate this. We thank all of you for contributing to the country's success. We can count progress in consolidating democracy. There is also progress in the improvement of the quality of life. One of the yardsticks we use to check the level of development in our country is to track the growth of the middle class in the country, especially the black middle class. Many different approaches have been adopted to define the middle class. And I'm sure we all agree that we focus on the black middle class because the blacks are a majority. And also they were the ones who were deprived before our freedom. So a look at them is absolutely important because it is in them where you must see the change. And you must then be able to say, yes, we are making progress. Various studies that have attempted to gauge the status of the middle class in South Africa have focused on different indicators that can be used to measure standards of living, such as access to household services, education, and occupation levels. In a 2008 report, our Stats SA used household services data from various surveys to describe the middle class households. A household with a middle class standard of living was defined as one which resides in formal housing and which has access to the following services: a water tap and flush toilet within the residence, electricity as a main source of lighting, electricity or gas as a main source for cooking, and a landline telephone or cell phone. The report estimates that in 1996, 19% of all households in South Africa with a middle class standard of living were black African. In 2006, this figure had increased to 41%. That is visible progress indeed. Population census data provides additional information on education. During census 1996, only 5,569 black African individuals aged 20 and above were recorded as having an honors degree as their highest level of education, compared to 31,187 white individuals. In 2011, the number of black Africans aged 20 and above with an honors degree had increased to 123,607 individuals, which is 52 per 10,000, compared to 127,207 whites, which is 371 per 10,000. The interest of our youth in education is remarkable indeed. It augurs well for the future. Black Africans with a master's or doctorate degree increased from 7,395 individuals in 1996, which is 5 per 10,000, to 70,692 individuals in 2011, which is 30 per 10,000. Between 1994 and 2014, there has also been significant gains in black African employment within the workforce. In 1994, 63% of the employed workforce consisted of black African workers, which is 5.6 million individuals, out of a total of 8.9 million. This has increased to 73% in 2014, which is 10 million out of 15 million. When broken down by occupational levels, the data show an increased black African presence within skilled occupations. In 1994, 46% of managerial, professional, and technical workers were black African, which was 846,000 individuals out of a total of 1.8 million. This year, 2014, this has increased to 52%, which is 1.9 million out of 3.8 million individuals. This indicates an improved quality of life each year and an improvement in the living standards of our people. There is no doubt that in 20 years of freedom, we have a really, really good story to tell. I'll share this with the media, the details, so that the story is told. Not so? Aren't you agreeing, guys? Huh? Compatriots, education is the most effective instrument that we can use as a ladder out of poverty for many of our young people. It thus remains the apex priority for the ANC and our government. We urge you to make it your apex priority as well as progressive professionals. And we say this because no country can boast of development without educating its citizens. Those who educated their citizens, at some point they stopped being called developing countries. They are called developed countries. Because you have citizens who don't only rely on employment, but who can create employment. So education is critical. And I'm very happy that you chose this topic. This actually indicates the progressiveness of the forum. Higher education on its own is a powerful tool of emancipating our people intellectually and academically. It is a powerful tool in promoting an educated society and in producing much needed skills for a growing economy like ours. It is a powerful tool that will enable us to produce progressive intellectuals, to participate in the battle of ideas and the ideological struggle that will move our country forward. This struggle must be fought and won by progressive thinkers. It will involve interrogating and challenging dominant ideas, because history has proven that dominant ideas are not always the correct ones to move society forward. At times, they might look dominant because they are being put across by very forceful individuals who at times, even if they're saying something wrong, you think they are saying something right. It needs those who have got the searching mind scientifically to get behind the anger and everything and put the scientific facts before the nation. The third point I wanted to raise with you, therefore, is your role in the debate around the transformation of our universities. What role universities must play to create and produce full and complete human beings, as opposed to just potential workers. We must do everything possible to ensure that our universities never become what Antonio Gramsci described as, and I quote, incubators of legal monsters, aridly trained for a job with no general ideas, no general culture, no intellectual stimulation, but only with an infallible eye and a firm hand, unquote. Graduates must emerge from universities as complete human beings who have full appreciation of the history of our country, its present and its future. Going through any institution of higher learning must be an empowering experience which helps to create a cadre of South Africans fully conscious of the transformation that our country is undergoing and the role they must play in this regard. The success of the transformation project in universities will rest on our collective ability to ask and answer difficult questions about academic freedom in a country that is transforming. We ought to debate without fear whether the objectives of our transformation agenda should not find expression in the curricula of our universities as part of our effort to instill students with a sense of appreciation of our national imperatives. Students must emerge from universities as patriotic citizens, willing to participate both in the conceptualization and implementation of our progressive program to transform society. This must be seen as an attempt, this must not be seen as an attempt at indoctrination or a threat to institutional autonomy, but rather as an intervention that reinforces academic freedom. After all, if our freedom is understood particularly by our learned more scientifically, you can't have a threat. You can't see the threat if people say we need better citizens. You can't feel threatened. Once you feel threatened in that situation, it means you yourself still need to be empowered. Academic freedom must be understood as allowing all views and different ideological strands to find expression without favor or prejudice. Universities will not be universities if they are one-sided and produce only conformists and apologists who are bent on the retention of the status quo, especially economically and socially. In other words, academic freedom must mean the freedom of university from the ideological stranglehold of any social class, religion, ethnic group, and race. We therefore need to reflect with regards to what extent our universities now reflect the changes that our country has been undergoing since 1994. It is the responsibility of organizations such as yours to keep universities constantly engaged on social issues that can move our country forward, and to answer and to ensure that they do not become institutions existing merely to legitimize opinions of one group over the other. As I said earlier, we are a vibrant society. In other words, our universities are situated in a country that in itself engages, and therefore they must be leading, or there must be one of the leading sector in that regard. Education is but an instrument of development. It is an instrument that can change the world for the better. It is an instrument that can protect the world from danger. And that's how we should understand and appreciate education. With lesser education, you do lesser in society. With more education, you do more in society. And I'm happy that these intellectuals in this room have seen it very important that they should engage this important sector. That defines you differently from other professionals. It makes you to be people with knowledge and using it to pull society forward and lead it to a better place. When a young man from Nkandla sings Nkandla, you understand it better. And we are going to shorten it and make it short. Because through your engagement, you will finally make many of us, before we say goodbye to this world, see the prosperity of South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to wish you, the Progressive Professionals Forum, a happy one-year anniversary. I'm sure it has been a wonderful year. It has been our first year. I'm sure we are going to do more. We wish you nothing but success in all your endeavors. I thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Baba Msholozi. Colleagues, those seats at the back, we are expecting you to come forward. They were not intended to be used. And I'm now going to call upon Sipile, our Secretary General, to pass a vote of thanks to the President and make the necessary announcement. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director, the Chairperson of PPF, the First Citizen, President of the Republic, President Jacob Zuma, the Minister of Higher Education, Dr. Midrand, PPF leadership, our panelists. I thank the President for blessing us today, for being part of this celebration, which is the first anniversary of PPF. When we launched last year, we invited him. He was very excited. In one sentence, he said, criticize us, but constructively. In the past year, President, we have done that. We have also praised your government where is needed. Ladies and gentlemen, the President has requested that after his address, he will leave us so that we proceed with the business of the day. But before then, the Minister of Higher Education will address and talk to the theme of the day and also provide the vision of his department on transformation in tertiary institutions, which will then be followed by the panel discussion by the panelists that are with us today. Mr. President, as PPF, together with our sponsors, How to Investment and other sponsors that are here, we would like to show with a token of appreciation and thank you for your support when we started this last year, and after a year, PPF is still in existence. Thank you, Mr. President. Yindele ndlela esihambayo. Kubalandeli bakhe wathi sohlangana nge-Freedom Day. Indele ndlela esihambayo, indele ndlela esihambayo. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. The gift to the president, to the journalist, has been declared. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome me and thank the president with a round of applause as he exits. Yinde lendela yesihambayo, yinde lendela yesihambayo, yinde lendela yesihambayo, yinde lendela yesihambayo. Washumandela balandeli bakhe wathi